It was one of the most important crypto exchanges in the world.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in.
FTX is the safest and easiest way to buy and sell crypto.
I don't think so.
Backed by celebrities.
This is Steph Curry, the world's leading expert on cryptocurrency.
I'm not.
Making massive donations to charity, even buying naming rights to stadiums. Then, FTX crashed.
Bankman-Fried arrested last night in the Bahamas.
Prosecutors said customers lost billions and the founder had stolen it.
And multiple conspiracy counts.
A jury convicted Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, of fraud. He was sentenced to 25 years.
Anything you'd like to say?
FTX was one of the biggest financial scandals in US history.
Bankman-Fried and his co-conspirators stole billions of dollars from FTX customers.
I spent the last year investigating the collapse of FTX and its aftermath, and got rare access to SBF in prison.
Thanks for making yourself available.
Conducting hours and hours of interviews with him.
How are you today?
The unit I'm currently in, which is a protective custody unit, it's a unit with people who are really definitely not allowed to stab each other.
I also spoke with FTX insiders, customers, and bankruptcy experts to try to understand the collapse and what happened next.
Everything is basically lost, it's gone.
They thought I was super tight with Sam and part of this bizarre criminal conspiracy.
Who lost out and who profited?
He has to have the ability to return it. They're not his funds.
I had no fucking clue how to run a company.
Now, SBF is appealing his conviction, asking a federal court to overturn the verdict. In some ways, this appeal isn't just about SBF. It also raises larger questions about what we do when corporate misconduct leads to a massive financial collapse, and who gets to control the story and the money afterward.
You have heard one side of the story only.
Ultimately, I don't think anyone committed a federal crime when running FTX. And so, from my perspective, even if I had been aware of everything, I don't think that means I committed a crime.
But to understand the appeal, let's rewind. FTX was once considered one of the safest crypto exchanges in the world, and it was extremely popular.
The early golden era was January of 2018. Basically, we were making $1 million a weekday.
But then in November 2022, FTX collapsed in spectacular fashion. It all began after a news expose revealed that FTX's finances were dangerously entangled with Sam's private trading firm, Alameda Research. That led to a run on FTX with customers trying to pull their money out.
Withdrawals were coming real fucking fast. On the 7th, we had $4 billion of net customer withdrawals. So like 40 times as much as we'd ever seen in a day before.
Within days, clients were cut off from their accounts.
Then I was, what? I was just, what? FTX crashed?
More than $8 billion in customer funds were said to be missing.
Whoa. Everything is basically lost, it's gone.
Now, in his appeal, SBF's team boils his arguments down to a few key points that he hopes will vacate his conviction or at least get a hearing. In his appeal, Sam's lawyers contend the government hammered home one message: that FTX was a scam. SBF had stolen customer money and now it was gone. But in our conversation, Sam kept insisting the money was there all along.
Where did the money go? And this is, by the way, it's the same thing that happens with a run on the bank. The bank soon runs into trouble. And it's not because they're broke. It's not because they took all the money and ate it and have nothing left. They invested.
In other words, it was just a liquidity crisis. FTX was short on cash.
We always had more value in assets than we had in liabilities. But when you're talking the billions, you can't just go sell off everything, in a matter of 20 minutes in order to fund withdrawals.
But the jury, he argues, was blocked from hearing that argument. Sam also insists he ran FTX with advice of counsel, consulting with lawyers on important decisions. FTX's loans, terms of service, and account structures were reviewed by lawyers. But he says the jury was prohibited from hearing that part of the story, which he argues could have raised reasonable doubt about whether he had an unlawful intent to defraud.
What you get is this gigantic rush of people, trying to disown everything that they said or done as part of FTX. No memory of anything that happened. We're not involved in any major decisions because they think they need to cover their ass. Lawyers signed off on, most of these things. But like, that's not something you're allowed to say anymore.
So Sam's third claim is also the most contentious. It focuses on John Ray III, the new CEO, and Sullivan & Cromwell, the powerful Wall Street law firm that worked for FTX before, during, and after the collapse as the bankruptcy counsel.
So all we would say to people is, you have heard one side of the story only, but there's a factual record out there that enterprising people can take a look at and make up their own minds.
Sam's mother is part of his legal team. In the appeal, they argue Sullivan & Cromwell wanted to place all the blame on Sam to avoid scrutiny of its own conflicts of interest due to its prior work for FTX, a claim the firm says is false.
Sullivan & Cromwell had very substantial conflicts of interest and shouldn't have been in that role to begin with. So, John Ray...
Can I?
Yes, you can.
Jump in? Do you want, when you ask these questions, do you want just like a 3-sentence answer or the longer answer?
Because if it's 3 sentences, go with him.
Sam's father is also on his legal team. And at the time of the collapse, he urged Sam to follow Sullivan & Cromwell's advice. He thought the firm would work with Sam and maybe save FTX.
I trusted Sullivan & Cromwell. They have all these brilliant people, former students of mine and Barbara's, and when they said, we'll find a trustee who will be best for the company, and in this case, what's clearly best for the company is to immediately get new money so everybody can withdraw. I mean, it's a liquidity crunch. That's your first thing that you do. I thought that they'd immediately begin doing it and work with Sam to do it.
Instead, the new CEO, John Ray, cut off all dialogue with SBF. A few weeks later, he ripped FTX's leadership for its total lack of safeguards.
The FTX group's collapse appears to stem from absolute concentration of control in the hands of a small group of grossly inexperienced and unsophisticated individuals who failed to implement virtually any of the systems or controls that are necessary for a company entrusted with other people's money or assets.
In their appeal, Sam's legal team claims Sullivan & Cromwell and the FTX estate acted as an arm of the prosecution to help build the criminal case against him.
They are the one continuous thread from beginning to end, having represented FTX before the crash, having been instrumental in getting the company turned over to John Ray, more than instrumental, running the bankruptcy, and they remained active through the sentencing. The prosecution was recommending that Sam get like 40 to 50 years in prison. And they're still involved. They will be the last one still on this playing field.
The government, of course, tells a very different story. It says the trial was fair, the evidence overwhelming, and the law clear.
Sam Bankman-Fried perpetrated one of the biggest financial frauds in American history. The cryptocurrency industry might be new. The players like Sam Bankman-Fried might be new. But this kind of fraud, this kind of corruption is as old as time.
Prosecutors say this case was simple. Sam Bankman-Fried lied and then misused customer funds. It wasn't about whether customers might get their money back, but whether SBF deceived people in the first place.
Bankman-Fried defrauded customers at FTX.com, the cryptocurrency exchange that he founded.
In their brief, prosecutors write all they had to prove was Sam had fraudulent intent and engaged in the scheme for the purpose of causing some loss to another.
This is one of the biggest financial frauds in American history.
They argue that SBF promised people their money was safe and then misused it. That's fraud, regardless of whether you could pay customers back or not. On Sullivan & Cromwell, the government says that although the FTX estate and the firm cooperated with them, They had no role in developing the prosecution's strategy. And ultimately, an independent examiner found no wrongdoing by the firm in its work with FTX. But here's the thing. Some experts believe Sam Bankman-Fried's appeal is about more than just whether he received a fair trial. It's also about whether the public can trust it's getting the whole truth when major fraud cases end up in bankruptcy.
We think that the prosecution took very inappropriate advantage of the bankruptcy.
Jonathan Lipson is a bankruptcy law professor who studied the FTX collapse and also filed a brief in Sam's appeal. He calls FTX a cautionary tale about the power that lawyers have to frame, control, and profit when they blur the lines between a bankruptcy and criminal proceedings. And he says that came at a great cost to customers. In his brief, he noted that every dollar spent to support the prosecution is a dollar not returned to creditors. And FTX is now one of the most expensive bankruptcies in history, with fees nearing $1 billion.
So is the system broken? No, but I think there are very serious concerns that it has gone far afield from what it was intended to be.
He says it's highly unusual in cases of corporate misconduct for the same law firm that worked with the company before the collapse to then serve as the bankruptcy counsel afterward, like Sullivan and Cromwell, S&C did.
Historically, it was very rare. And it was very rare precisely because Congress recognized that once a company goes into bankruptcy, we don't know enough about why the company got into bankruptcy to trust the bankruptcy lawyers to, in effect, investigate themselves.
Lipson says bankruptcy should serve the public interest, not only by making sure people get paid back, but also by surfacing what went wrong so we can learn from it.
The most important public interest really is the interest in the integrity of the judicial process, which is why concerns about S&C would be quite serious.
As crypto grows ever more entwined with the US economy, the stakes for these kinds of cases are even higher. For Sam, here's the bottom line.
I never defrauded anyone.
The jury disagreed, finding him guilty on all counts, and it'll be up to the appeals court to decide whether any of his arguments warrant a new trial. We'll keep an eye on it as it unfolds.